Ricky Nelson was born into fame, raised under the spotlight, and adored by millions. From the moment Ricky Nelson took his first steps, the cameras were rolling. As the heartthrob of the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, he didn't just grow up in America's living rooms, he became part of the nation's family. Charming, handsome, and effortlessly talented, Ricky seemed destined for greatness. But behind the polished smile and chart-topping hits, a darker, more complicated story was quietly unfolding. Now, decades after his tragic death, the mystery surrounding Ricky Nelson is finally being uncovered, and the truth is far more disturbing than anyone imagined. This isn't just a story of fame. It's about secrets, betrayals, and the emotional weight of a life lived on camera. Get ready, because once you hear what really happened, you'll never see Ricky the same way again. But Ricky Nelson wasn't content to remain just the boy next door from a family sitcom. He broke free from that image, and did it with a guitar in hand. At a time when rock and roll was still sparking outrage among older generations, Ricky stepped into the spotlight and made it his own. His first single, a bold cover of Fats Domino's I'm Walking, exploded onto the charts in 1957, signaling the rise of a teen idol who wasn't just a product of television, but a genuine musical force. Hit after hit followed: Hello Mary Lou, Travelin' Man, Poor Little Fool, Lonesome Town, each one carving out a place in rock history. With a clean-cut image and a voice that could melt hearts, Ricky Nelson helped take rock and roll from rebellion to respectability, bringing it into millions of American homes. By the time he turned 21, he wasn't just a former child star, he was one of the top-selling solo artists of his time. But fame, as always, came with a cost. It wasn't easy for Ricky Nelson to make a living after the mid-1960s, when music tastes started to change. Nelson had a hard time staying at the top of the charts instead of. To keep up with changing tastes, he decided to explore a more mature country rock sound. This led to the formation of the Stone Canyon Band, a group that helped pioneer the country rock genre, a style later adopted by artists like the Eagles. In 1972, he released the reflective single Garden Party, which became a huge comeback hit. It was inspired by the disappointing response he got at a Madison Square Garden concert where the crowd only wanted his old hits. The song was a defiant anthem about. It sent a strong message about artistic integrity and inner truth. You can't make everyone happy, so you have to make yourself happy. Besides his huge success as a singer, Ricky Nelson made a name for himself in film and TV by showing off his impressive acting and singing skills. His acting career began in 1952 with the family comedy Here Come the Nelsons, which took advantage of the popularity of his famous family. A year later, Nelson took a small role in the drama, but important part in the story of Three Loves 1953, an MGM production directed by the legendary Vincente Minnelli. Nelson played a young version of Farley Gurza's character in this movie, showing that he already had a knack for bringing characters to life on the big screen. Nelson's popularity grew through his music career and the hit TV show The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. His skills caught the attention of major Hollywood directors. One of the most important moments in his film career came in 1959, when the renowned director Howard Hawks. George Cukor cast him as a gunslinger in the famous western Rio Bravo, which also starred John Wayne and Dean Martin. Nelson's performance brought new life to the movie, and Hawks himself said that Nelson's magnetic presence was a big reason why the movie did so well at the box office. Nelson kept building his playing career by working with well-known actors. In 1960, he co-starred with the charming Jack Lemmon in The Wackiest Ship in the Army, a comedy about a war that was so popular it led to a TV show. Nelson himself didn't praise his role on TV, but he did make guest appearances on shows like General Electric Theater, where his episode, The Wish Book, showed off his acting skills in addition to his musical fame. In 1965, Nelson played the lead role in Love and Kisses, a romantic comedy written and directed by his father Ozzie Nelson. The movie also starred Jack Kelly and gave Ricky a chance to combine his acting skills with his charm and musical skills. Making a touching and interesting feature during the late 1960s and early 1970s, Nelson regularly appeared on TV in guest roles. He played the notorious outlaw Jesse James in an episode of Hondo, co-starred with veteran actors Walter Brennan and Pat O'Brien in the nostalgic western The Over-the-Hill Gang, 1969, and continued to make guest appearances in popular shows like MLOUD, The Streets of San Francisco, Owen Marshall, Counselor at Law Petrocelli, and A Twist in the Tale. One memorable guest role was on The Hardy Boys. Nelson played the part of Tony Eagle on Nancy Drew Mysteries. The episode not only showed off his acting skills, but also his singing, as he sang a few of his biggest hits, which made fans of both his acting and singing happy. Nelson also appeared on the popular show The Love Boat, which was another in a long line of different TV roles he had in the 1980s. Nelson kept getting small parts in TV movies like 3 on a Date and High School USA 1983, a comedy about teens. Ricky Nelson's acting career, which began when he was a teenager, was a lively and exciting addition to his many artistic pursuits. His lasting charm and skill kept him in high demand across all entertainment platforms, from the big screen to the small screen. Ricky Nelson was one of America's most beloved teen idols. His clean-cut look, smooth voice, and boyish charm won over millions of hearts. With so much fame came a lot of attention from fans and the media, so it wasn't a surprise that he was loved. A lot of young women. Ricky, like most teenagers, was eager to date, and he dated a number of girls during these formative years. However, even though he was popular and independent, Ricky's mother Harriet Nelson had a big impact on his personal life. Harriet was not only his mother figure, but she was also his co-star on the family's long-running TV show The Adventures of A.Z. and Harriet. She had strong beliefs about proper behavior and how important it was to keep a good reputation in public. Harriet didn't like a lot of the young women, especially when they were in Hollywood. Ricky brought home or was seen with often made her feel like they didn't live up to the standard she had set for her son. Her worries weren't just about manners or class, they were also about Ricky's career path. She thought he should focus on building a long-lasting and respected career in music and acting instead of wasting time on short-term relationships. Her desire to protect may have come from both a mother's. Ricky often did what his mother wanted, but he also felt the tension between his personal wants and professional expectations. This was a recurring theme in his adolescence and early adulthood. Eventually, though, Ricky fell in love with Kristen "Chris" Harmon, a young woman who seemed to meet Harriet's approval. The two were married in April 1963 in a wedding that got a lot of attention and brought together two famous American families. Chris Harmon was the daughter of Heisman Trophy-winning football player Tom Harmon and 1940s film actress Elise Knox. The Harmons had been friends with the Nelsons for a long time, and the union was seen as a natural and desirable match. Many fans thought it was like a fairy tale, with two children of Hollywood royalty getting married. The Harmon and Nelson families had a deep connection through entertainment and public life, and this marriage in many ways represented a continuation of their legacies. Ricky and Chris had 4 children together. Their first child was born in 2002. Tracy Christine Nelson became an actress, just like her father did. She made a name for herself with parts in movies and TV shows, including the series Father Dowling Mysteries. In the early 1990s, Chris had twin sons named Gunnar Eric Nelson and Matthew Gay Nelson. Both inherited their father's musical talent and charisma. The twins were successful with their rock band Nelson, which was the first family act in history to have 3 generations of hitmakers. Their hit song, Can't Live Without Your Love and Affection, was the #1 song on the Billboard charts in 1990. The couple's youngest child, Sam Hilliard Nelson, was named after Ricky's father A.Z. Nelson, whose middle name was Hilliard. Sam also got into the arts, though he didn't get as much attention as his siblings. Ricky and Chris's marriage was having more and more problems as the years went by. Things got worse after the birth of their last child, when they had different ideas about how to live and grow as people. And the emotional space between them grew a lot. Ricky was often on the road because he had to tour and wanted to get his music business going again. Chris, on the other hand, was said to be struggling with the stresses and duties of family life, and there were rumors of cheating and growing emotional distance. What seemed like a glamorous marriage between two famous people slowly fell apart behind closed doors as personal problems and competing priorities made their relationship worse. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, they fought more, which led to a separation and then a long and painful legal battle over custody, finances, and public image. Their divorce was finalized in December 1982, ending a marriage that had lasted almost 20 years. Both Ricky and Chris found the legal proceedings emotionally draining, but they stayed committed to their children, trying to keep a sense of stability for them despite the chaos in the family. Ricky was deeply affected by the end of the marriage, and it influenced some of the more sad themes in his later music. For decades, fans of Ricky Nelson, the teen idol rock and roll pioneer and TV star, have wondered about the exact circumstances of his tragic and untimely death. While some facts were known at the time, many important questions remained. Was it really a mechanical failure that caused the plane crash that killed him, or was there something more sinister going on that December 31, 1985? Nelson's death sparked a lot of interest and sadness. Now, after years of investigation, expert analysis, and new accounts from witnesses and insiders, the full story has finally come to light, and what it reveals is not comforting. At the heart of the mystery is the small DC-3 plane that Ricky and his band were flying in on their way to a New Year's Eve concert in Dallas, Texas. Early reports said that a mechanical problem, possibly a heater that wasn't working right, caused a fire on board, which led to the crash near Dallas, Texas. The plane caught fire in the air, but both pilots miraculously survived. Ricky Nelson, his fiancée Helen Blair, and 5 band members perished within the inferno in the wake of the catastrophe. Rumors began to swirl, a few blaming drug use, others pointing hands at defective renovation at the same time as nevertheless others speculated approximately sabotage or hidden foul play. For years the reason became shrouded in reputable ambiguity. The Countrywide Transportation Safety Board eventually ruled that the hearth originated in the cabin, probably due to a malfunctioning heater. However, they couldn't determine the precise ignition source. In the meantime, speculation ran wild in tabloids and among enthusiasts. Whispers of freebasing cocaine based totally on rumors that drug paraphernalia were observed at the scene fueled a darker narrative that many believed unfairly tainted Nelson's picture. But toxicology reports found no drugs or alcohol in Nelson's machine, and no concrete evidence ever linked the hearth to drug use. Nevertheless, the cloud of uncertainty lingered for many years, leaving an open wound for his family and a haunting question mark for fans. What in the end introduced decision had been a sequence of investigative breakthroughs made feasible by way of the patience of aviation historians, forensic analysts, and reporters who were determined to discover the truth. Formerly not noted technical information mixed with new interviews with aviation mechanics and the surviving pilots discovered a far clearer and greater annoying photo. The aircraft, a World Conflict II era Douglas DC-3, were poorly maintained and became operating beneath questionable safety situations despite being aware about repeated troubles with the heater device, problems that were referred to or even complained about on previous flights. The plane's operators failed to address them competently. Greater damningly, the heater were jury-rigged in a manner that made it a ticking time bomb with makeshift upkeep that did no longer follow aviation protection requirements. The heater became placed just beneath the cabin floorboards near flammable materials, and when it malfunctioned all through the flight it sparked a fire that rapidly crammed the cabin with smoke and toxic fumes. The dearth of an onboard hearth extinguisher and fire retardant insulation gave the passengers no chance. Ricky Nelson and the others probably succumbed to smoke inhalation earlier than the crash landing. Consistent with forensic reviews, the pilots managed to break out via the cockpit windows. However, for every body within the cabin it became too late. The most chilling revelation changed into now not just that the hearth could have been prevented, however, that people answerable for the aircraft knew it became risky and allowed it to fly. Besides, in hindsight, the flight was a catastrophe ready to take place. The final thriller, how this kind of distinguished discern ought to die in one of these preventable tragedy, changed into subsequently responded, however now not with the type of closure that brings peace as a substitute. It has added renewed sadness and outrage. Ricky Nelson, a cherished entertainer who had grown from infant star to musical legend, become misplaced now not to destiny or personal failure but to human negligence and systemic oversight. The fact now laid bare is difficult to swallow. It paints a Painful portrait of an avoidable disaster and reminds us that even icons are prone when those tasked with their protection fail them. Ricky Nelson's legacy as a cultural parent endures, but the circumstances of his loss of life serve as a grim cautionary story, a reminder that mysteries, whilst finally solved, don't usually carry consolation. Now and again they only deepen the tragedy.